for joining Black JD. We have Rebekah Thomas here. She is a lawyer at Holzer Firm. She is active within the Orange County community, a mother as well. I'm interested to know what kind of first sparked your interest in studying law.
Well, I do want to clarify, I'm not at Holzer. I'm at SNR Law Group. I think Holzer was a firm a long time ago that I was at. Um, but what sparked my interest in the law? I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was a kid. So when I was like sixth grade is when I kind of solidified, like, this is what I want to do. I think I grew up in Atlanta. There were a lot of like things that I saw that I felt like you know, weren't right, if that makes sense. And I saw the lack of information that like a lot of Black people had surrounding the law. And so I would just little things I would learn, and I would pass on information or kind of give that information to my friends at the time, or sometimes even adults, and I saw the difference that it made. And I was around like when you're in Atlanta, when I was in Atlanta back in that time, it was very much a like hub for like civil rights and obviously in history, Atlanta's been like a hub for that. So I was in a lot of programs and stuff growing up where it was like that's kind of where I was pointed toward. So I think that's what sparked my interest, is that I saw a lot of injustice and weird things that I was like, we just don't know. We don't know the laws, we don't know the rules, and we should be more informed. So yeah.
I think starting early as six, was there a specific moment then or later throughout your career, a specific moment or experience that solidified your path to Emory Law specifically?
I think for me, so when I was in the sixth, it was in the sixth grade. And so I think I thought I had a particular path. But then I had teachers, kind of mold that path a little bit. So I actually transferred to Emory. I went to Atlanta John Marshall first. And I think after I graduated from undergrad, I was teaching for about a year in between. It was supposed to be 2 years, but then I saw further things while I was teaching. And I was like, no, I just got to get started. I got to go to law school because in my mind, I wanted to change the education system at that point. And so I went ahead. I was like, I got to start law school. I can't do this any longer. And at the time, I hadn't really been studying for like the LSAT as much as I should have. So I didn't have the score. But I knew if I didn't start immediately, then I would like keep working and, I could get caught up in working and not pursuing law. So I went to John Marshall, and I knew, coming from like my background, having not known lawyers or had any people to I didn't have people to rely on. I thought I was like, I need a big school or name behind me. So that's when I transferred to Emory in my second year. And I was like, I think I need more of that exposure. And obviously I'm from Atlanta. I know the caliber of the school. And so that's kind of what changed, like solidified that trajectory. But I basically was teaching, and I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here and just get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there a specific person who tethered that motivation to pursue law? Um, if when you were unsure during times of uncertainty?
So it was a few people. I think one was Congressman John Lewis. When I was younger, he had a lot of programs obviously before he went to do greater things. He was really involved in Atlanta's politics, and he had like youth programs and things. And I was part of his youth program, and he would literally come knock on my door and get me out of the house to come participate. And he was one of the people that I was like, okay, this can be a path. And then my high school teacher's name was I forgot his first name, but his last name was Featherstone. I need to go back and find this man. He was the one in ninth grade who was like, "You're gonna be a lawyer," and he was like, "When you get to college, don't major in political science or pre-law and all that stuff." He's like, "Get an economics degree and then go to law school." And he was like, "It's gonna open up doors." He like sat me down. He really saw. He was my civics teacher. I think the civics in ninth grade, and so I think he really kind of molded that. And then I think it did to me. And then I would say when I was at John Marshall, right, I had already started law school. I had a dean of students. Her name was Harrison. I forgot her first name. Oh my God. And then I had a professor. His name was Robert. I forgot his last name. But they were like, "What are you doing here? Like, you have all the ability and all the be at like a top tier school." And they like years after my father passed away in law school, second semester, and I was right before finals. And this, she was the dean of students at the time. She came to my house, knocked on the door, and made sure I got out of the house and finished my exam. And same thing for my professor. He was like, "Look, I'm going to give you an extension to take your final because your dad just passed." He was like, "But you will not let this deter you, right?" So I think if I could like name those four people, and then my eighth grade teacher, Miss Span, it was about writing. She would submit my writing to city contact, even when I didn't want to participate. I was on a debate team with her in middle school and stuff like that. So I think if I had to name people where I could see the shift in my life, it was those five people that like without them at their different points, I don't think I could have gotten off track, right? Because I grew up around a lot of chaos. There was a lot going on in my personal life and things always. So I think those people were really good at keeping things on track and like keeping me motivated to go to the next step.
I think it's really powerful that all of those people were educators and considering your role in education now, and maybe how that kind of changes your relationship to your students as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role as a educator and kind of what it means to be on the other side of law school?
Yeah. So, I mean, after I graduated and I passed the bar, I was practicing for a couple years, and I had a friend of mine say, "Hey, you should come teach in our legal studies program at the community college." And at the time, I was like, I've only been a lawyer for 2 days. What am I going to teach anybody? But teaching has always been a passion. Like I said, I was a teacher before I started law school, taught eighth graders. And for me, like I told you, it was something that did drive me to go ahead and start law school because I do think there are a lot of changes that need to be made in the education system. So I think it's been really impactful for me to be on the other side of teaching students in two different programs, in legal studies programs, just to help people. It's not even so much about the content. So, because I teach in paralegal programs, and so it's typically students that are getting their paralegal certificate, they want to enter the law, but not as an attorney. Normally, they want to start with the paralegal, and then maybe some of them want to go on to be attorneys. But it's not even so much the content that I'm teaching. It's the impact that having a teacher or professor can have on you. So I like being a different perspective for students. I know a lot of times I didn't see a lot of Black teachers and professors, and I definitely love the idea of being a part of the representation that at least I wanted back in the day. So I think that's helpful, and I think that's been the most impactful part is when my students are like, "Hey, can we talk?" Or having students that years later come back and say, "I loved being in your class. It helped me X, Y, and Z." Because I'm like, that's kind of more what I do it for.
I think it's really great being that source of support for them. And I'm wondering how are you able to kind of stay organized and between academia, being a mentor to so many, as well as motherhood, uh, philanthropy, litigation, all of it.
I don't manage it well. I'm not good at it, but I do it. Um, if I'm being honest, right? Like a lot of times we see these superhero type figures on TV where they have everything in a perfect box, right? They go to work from 9 to 5. You see them peek out maybe, and then they're completely organized. They're killing it in court, and then they're with their babies at at their after school programs or whatever they might be doing. And then they're volunteering. We do get it done, but it doesn't look that it's not. It doesn't come out glamorous. It's full of a lot of forgotten things. It's full of a lot of my kid's hair didn't look the best it could have this morning. It's full of a lot of maybe I didn't make it to that game today. Though I try to make sure I'm volunteering with my daughter's school and stuff every week. That's one of the reasons why I moved to being my own boss and like starting a firm with a friend of mine's is I wanted that flexibility of being my own boss and having my own firm and my own practice and not being confined by working for somebody else because I did that, right? We just started our firm last year together at least. But prior to that, almost for 8 years of my career, I worked for somebody else and was like the struggle of the balance was difficult. But since being on my own, it's been a little bit less difficult. Like today, I got up and I had left my computer somewhere. And when I met my friend to get it, I was like, you know what? I'm just not going in. I'm just going to work with you. So I'm in her office right now. She's the pastor of a church. I'm just like, I'm just going to sit in your office and do this interview and get some work done. And you know what I mean? But I think there is the flexibility, right? Is you have to know what works for you. Because I don't always have it together. I don't always have it the best organized, but I make sure to only put in my life things that have significance that's worth the sacrifice. So when people ask me to get involved in things, if I don't genuinely have a passion for it, even if it's a really good idea, or if it might prepare my career, I don't get it. I don't do it because I don't have space in my life for things that aren't meaningful. So I think it helps you balance when you only do meaningful things, right? Because all of the aspects of my life mean something. I'm heavily involved in church. That means something to me. Um, I'm obviously my children, my family, but also the business means something to me and being a part of the community and for newer lawyers and law students and even young people that are interested in law or just young people in general. All of that is important. So I make time. It's not pretty always. It's not structured. It's not color coded like my little study charts back in the day. I used to be, really organized when I was an undergrad to have my like highlighted this and had my life compartmentalized, right? But it's not all neat and organized like that anymore. But it gets done, if that makes
Mm.
sense, because it's all important. So I'm not the best at an organized life, but I am, I think, pretty decent at being present in all aspects of my life. But it might be a little I might come running out with the tissue on the bottom of my paper, okay? On the bottom of my shoe, that's kind of how it looks. It don't always
Yeah.
look all, but I'm
Mm.
there. I'm
Yeah.
there. I'm gonna bring the content. I'm gonna be present, but my always it's not put together.
No, absolutely. And I think what you're saying, like what falls to the side, brings room for what's supposed to be there, like being able to, start your own firm with your best friend, no less. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about that? What is your firm's practice areas? What do you focus on?
So a couple years, me and my friend Holzer, we were both working at Holzer Law Group back in 2019, 2020. And that was we met each other through the Bar Association, TNBA, and we were both on the board. I want to say she was either still in law school or she was getting ready to take the bar. And so then when I quit my job, I saw that she was like, oh, the firms that she had wanted like a part-time attorney or something. And I was like, oh, I quit my job to be with my baby. And I had just had my daughter. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can do a little bit of work, but in my mind, I'm not going to work too much. I'm just doing a little bit. And we just became friends. And even when I left the firm, we just throughout our time, we stayed friends. And um, I was at my most recent firm before moving, which was a big firm. And I just didn't like it. We would every now and then she would be asked, wasn't the best at doing litigation. So she was like, hey, can you help me with this case? And I'm like, I'm not supposed to be moonlighting, lady. But she's like, but I don't do litigation, so help me. And so eventually she was like, girl, leave and just come and we'll do this together. And I was like, but I need to make a certain amount of money. She's like, we can do that. You can make she's really good at business. And so I was like, okay, as long as I can make what I was making before and work, I don't want to work that hard. I was like, be quite honest, I don't want to work that hard. So we came up with a plan and we were like, well, what do we both do well? She was a real estate broker before going to law school. So we had both practiced within the real estate law realm. I had done family law since working at Legal Aid my whole life, basically. Whole life, my whole time in law. I had done a little bit of family law. And then we were like, look, we are good at helping business owners. So let's put it all together. I had done a little bit of employment, worked for a defense firm and stuff. And so that's kind of what we did. We put it together. So our practice now focuses on housing, all aspects of it. So we represent a lot of owned landlords who have tenants, and let's say they're having issues with their tenants. But then we do like real estate purchase disputes, like folks buy a house, but they want to sue either previous seller or HOA and things like that. Neighbor disputes, like two neighbors that might have a dispute with each other. We do anything quiet title partition, that's all related to housing, right? somebody says they have an interest in the property, and you question that, it's called quiet title. If two co-owners own the property together, but they don't want to, one of them doesn't want to own it with the other person anymore, you do what's called a partition. So you say, hey, look, let's force the sale of this property. Um, so, we do that. We do all the housing. And then we also do like the business aspect, which includes a little bit of employment law. It includes helping with business entity, like someone wants to create a business, doing the formation of that business for them, choosing the right entity, handling their disputes, contract disputes, litigation, stuff like that. And then I do a tiny little bit of family law. I'm trying to get rid of it, but right now I still have like one or two cases of family law. So that's kind of what we do. We were more of a generalist firm. As long as with litigation, I could do it, but I've honed in a little bit with keeping it within those two realms, housing and then business litigation.
That's awesome. That's very cool. I like, especially the way that you were able to just say, I know what I want, and I'm doing away with the rest and come together and make it work. How has the firm and you yourself personally sort of found community in the Orange County area, California at large? Who is uplifting you and who do you uplift?
I think honestly, my first sense of community was Thurgood Marshall Bar Association. I mean, that was my first sense of community, and then from there, my involvement. When I lean in, I lean in. When I'm going to be involved in something, I'm going to be fully, wholly involved. And what that did is it led to so many other like relationships and engagement with larger organizations. So Thurgood Marshall, that's been my support. I will say that my best friends that I've met, minus my two best friends, my two closest friends, right? I didn't meet them through TNBA, but everybody else that I consider like a very close friend, I'm including my law partner, they've all were met through TNBA. And when I've gone through some of the toughest times in my life since being here in California, they have been like, it showed me what community was. So I definitely, especially in Orange County, where it's not, you don't have a lot of Black people here. I think it's been very helpful because now all of us kind of grown up together. We've all had kids now. Our kids are growing up together. So my child's best friend is my friend that I met through TNBA's son. They are best friends. They they're 8 and 9, and they on their iPads. They will have a fit if they can't talk to each other. They are just best little friends, right? But my kids' best friends are literally the children of other attorneys, Black attorneys in Orange County. And, they've been supportive of my family. I've had parents pass away and they've been supportive in making sure my family was fed while I've been out of the state and things like that. But then those relationships that I've made grew, right? So now I'm a part of Orange County Bar Association, which is the bar association for all the lawyers in Orange County, not just the Black lawyers. And I'm the only Black attorney on that board. And I think me showing up authentically as a Black woman, they know I'm not performative. They can respect that, right? And so I think that has led to just so many relationships. Um, and even like within, the Black churches here, I'm friends with pretty much at least two of the four big pastors are like, I mean, one of them, we just went and got our nails done today. That's my girl, right? And same thing with the other pastor. He's a very large pastor. He's a church pastor of a very large church here in Orange County. And I don't go to their churches. Like they're not where, like, I don't have membership at their churches. We're just friends, but I support them, right? The bar association supports them, and we do clinics at the church, legal clinics and legal town halls, and bring information. And so I think that that's me offering support to them, but also they're supportive of me. I mean, I will get calls from both of them just saying, "Hey, just checking on you. Are you good? Do you need me? What can I be supporting you in?" Right. So I definitely think faith-based community has been a support here. Um, yeah, I would say those are kind of the pillars I've seen. TNBA, which open doors to larger relationships, and then the faith-based community. Um, yeah, I would say that's kind of where I draw support.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you if there was ever a moment of doubt within your law path, but it seems like you've been
No, I've had doubt. No, I've had doubt for sure.
mhm.
I've had doubt. I think. you don't let the doubt you feel overshadow the hope and potential that you know is there, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. Like I've had doubt because again, I'm just not from what appears to be like the profession of law, and especially if you're in these spaces, it can seem very prestigious. You can feel like, oh, everything feels put together. And I felt out of place. I am not from that environment. And I would just be listening to people. I speak in African American vernacular English. They call it AAVE. They used to call it demonics. Okay. I am not that girl that's like the poise. My best friend is. She's an AKA. She's so AKA, right? She's very put together. Um, she's that's just who she is. She does not leave out of the house without her face on, dressed. Just I'm just not that girl. Okay. I just didn't grow up that way. And I felt like all of what I lacked was going to somehow show its ugly head, right? So imposter syndrome was very real and often still is. And I have to put it in check because I'll be like, how did I get in this room? Like, I'm on a text basis with justices of the California Supreme Court, right? With federal judges, like we be on a text basis. Very high up people that are in our political, climate and in our court systems, and just folks. I mean, I went to Disney. A judge took me and a friend to Disney. He was like, "Oh, you my girl, let's go to Disney." Right? Just this is in my mind. I'm like, how am I in this room? And at some point, I'm like, at some point, they're gonna realize they let the wrong person in here. At some point, they're gonna realize that I'm too hood to be in here. At some point, they're gonna realize that I don't speak like them, that I don't think like them. Half of the words they use, you know, but I am true to who I am. When people use words I don't understand, despite me being this lawyer, I ask them, girl, what that mean? You use a big word right there. Explain that. Right? I don't stay in my ignorance, but I often do feel that imposter syndrome. Like, I be sitting in a room and I just look around sometimes like, how they let me in here? Right? When I have judges calling me telling me, are you going to apply to be a judge? I'm like, you sure you're talking about me? But as soon as I have those feelings, I always go to, and this is my personal, I have strong faith. And I'm like, all right, Lord, this is not my mistake. All the things that I've gone through in life have allowed me to be the person I am today. And I'm here for a reason. I might not fully understand it. And these people still might not realize who they let in this room because they think I'm the token black girl. What they don't realize is I've been powered to the people my whole life. So, we'll see if they keep let me stay here once I blow up the spot. But for now, I'm here, and I've just reminded myself that I am worthy of every space that I'm in, and it kind of helps with that doubt. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that is many of us, many Black attorneys, particularly female attorneys, and just professional women, not even attorneys, just we have that sense of like doubt maybe in us. But as long as you don't let it overshadow the potential, the worthiness, the things that you know to be true, you have those moments, but you keep moving. You just keep moving.
Absolutely. Um, so aesthetics being put together, aka ready aside, what sort of qualities do you um, most strongly associate with that of a great lawyer or a future lawyer?
Well, I'll put it into two categories: just being a lawyer in general, and then the characteristics and qualities I think you have to have, but as a Black lawyer, because I think some overlap, but some of them are different. So, as a lawyer in general, I think you have to have a sense of um, truth seeking, if that makes sense. I know that is maybe counterintuitive because most people are like, oh, lawyers bend the truth, they lie, blah, blah, blah. But I think you have to be a truth seeker so that you can understand how you can adequately address your client or whatever. And because truth seeking often goes with the ability to want to learn, I think that makes a good lawyer. Obviously, being detail oriented, paying attention to detail is very important because minute details in the law can change the outcome of a case and can change the outcome of your analysis of the facts in the law. So I think having that little bit of like, you have to have a certain level of detail orientedness. I think the ability to listen and have a level of temperance in the law is needed for any lawyer because you have to realize that the law in itself is theory, but then when you start actually practicing law, you learn that it's way more practical, right? Your outcome, the research that you found may help, but then it is subject to the judge, the jury, whoever is interpreting, you know what I mean, who has the power to give you the outcome. So I think in general, those are some of the qualities I think you need as an attorney. But then as a Black attorney, you need a level of perseverance. Period. You need a level of um, assurance in who you are. Period. And that's whether or not it's still a white dominated field. And often, and I know that age old saying, we have to work twice as hard to have this far, if that makes sense. And that is a real statement. It still happens in today's world. It's 2025 and it's still a thing. So yeah, those are two that I think are separate and apart from being a lawyer and are more more akin to being a Black attorney.
Being a Black lawyer and knowing that, and a Black educator, and knowing that your students may need that perseverance and that assurance, how has your identity shaped classroom dynamics and mentoring?
I think it's so funny because every time I start a semester, quarter, whatever, because the two schools I teach at are on two different, one's on, I think, semesters, one's on quarters. Um, I think they have an idea of what a class is going to be like, right? They come in, they meet the professor, and then they realize that I'm cool. And they be like, oh my God, she's so cool. You know, I remember at being in school and stuff so vividly and realizing that it's only one aspect of your life and that while it's an important aspect, I had so much life happening while I was in school. So I think for me, having that perspective allows me to have so much empathy. So I am not that professor that's like, for the most part, I'm always like, look, turn in your work. If it's late, I probably won't deduct nothing from it because now if you turn in on the last day, okay. But, you know, because I just realized that I just know what it's like. Life's okay. So I think having all of my experiences as an educator, being in school, all the stuff, I definitely think it changes that the dynamic in my classroom. I am really not that I got mine, you gotta get yours type of person. I'm very much like, all right, you gotta do this to get to your next stage. I'm here to help you do that. I have standards for my students, but at the same time, I understand. So I think what they realize, and I'm just real like, we just be talking. We be just talking. I told him one time I was like, "Oh, they gave me the shady class. Y'all all shady up in here," and we was cracking up. Like we was on Zoom. I was like, "Y'all don't gotta turn your camera on. I know y'all laughing." Like like that's just how I am as a professor because I'm gonna be myself. You know, I bring that to the law practice too. People are like, "Y'all do not have a traditional law firm." No, man, we do not. My clients become my friends. We be cackling. I got a friend. He was letting me borrow his Tesla for like a month with my car. Yeah, like I just become friends with my client. I'm like, we're just not a
Okay,
traditional.
friend.
Girl, I'm rarely in the office. I'm riding around town.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I feel like that must be a trait of like law professors specifically because y'all are can be either very specific or very like even keeled. Um, but I appreciate, when professors are able to be understanding. Because yeah, life's for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I just feel like sometimes people, I think it's one or two things. People kind of forget what life was like for them because we've all had to go through it. Or when they get this title, it goes to their head a
Mm.
little bit. I do think that. You got people calling you professor and feels like I've made it. You almost have you have this God complex, like I'm holding their grade in my hand. I just don't see it that way. So I think that comes across. I really don't. Sometimes again, I'll be like, y'all let me teach somebody? Okay. I'm like, ain't no y'all gonna let me teach nobody, but all right. So I don't have a God complex. I'll be out here like they gonna catch me in a minute and be like, "No, I forgot. This was a mistake."
Funny. Too funny.
It's my
Um,
daughter FaceTiming.
but yeah, I was so as Black JD, is a pre-law association, and we try to connect pre-law students with professors, but also folks in the industry. And so my last question is, if you could give one piece of advice to pre-law students who are hoping to follow in your path, what would it be?
Make sure this is what you want to do. This is not for the faint of heart. It takes law school is very difficult. Being a lawyer is very difficult. You have people's issues in your hands, and so it carries a certain level of stress and responsibility. Law school is expensive. There are long nights. You don't get to live in a bubble while you do it, right? So I often tell people you really need to solidify your why. Because if you're doing it for the prestige, not every part of the law is prestigious. If you're doing it for the money, not all areas of the law make a bunch of money. So I tell people before you engage on this journey, that can be very taxing on your life. Figure out your why, make sure you're doing it for the right reason. If you haven't shadowed an attorney, find someone to see what their day to day is like, not just the highlight. Because people get into it and then they realize, oh, this is what I'm going to do every day. It is. And you didn't know that. And you thought it was glitz and glamour. You watched Suits and you watched Law and Order and you thought it was like that in real life, and it's not. I had a high school student shadowing me. They maybe just sat on the other side of my computer, and I was like, "Oh, I'm writing briefs." So I guess she'll just watch me write briefs because that's real shadowing. Because that's what I do. I write briefs. I'm not always out doing this cool stuff, talking to clients and going to these big high power meetings. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, the day to day is I'm sitting up. That's why I can do it at my friend's office. I'm sitting here with a computer, typing away. You know what I'm saying? So my piece of advice is really solidify your why. Make sure that you're doing this for a reason that is separate and apart from money, status, prestige, to make your mama proud, right? You have to have a separate reason because it won't get you through the hard times. It's gonna be tough. You gotta have a why.
Thank you for your perspective. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we close out?
No, thanks for having me. This has
You
been
put it
great.
all out on the table. Thank you so much for your perspective, especially being that you are so dynamic, and really just giving to not only the Orange County community, but the law community at large. So appreciate having you here.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, and I'm here to help however you need.